by being here. Everyone, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam
Père que Shemanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu לעסוק בדברי Torah.
Torah. Amen. Thank you for that. Okay, 4418. Doesn't matter which chumash you have. Please, go ahead, Barbara.
Rabbi, you're still on that plane.
I am.
Yeah, because you didn't say the bracha with you. Okay.
Actually, it's an interesting moment to talk about. I think what the Reform movement has done is remind people to say blessings together, but you don't have to. In other words, people worry about, did we say the Mosi when you ate your bagel? And the answer is no. We didn't. And we can also, we should say, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Mosi lechem min haaretz. Did Susan violate the rule by eating before we said that?
Oh.
You didn't, you're not in trouble. The point is,
There's a solution to this.
you can still say the bracha to yourself. You can still say la'asok b'divrei Torah when you're home alone. You don't have to be in a group to say the bracha, even though I thank you for reminding us to say them. So that's I'm glad you mentioned that point. I'm very much here right now, not on a plane, but it's important to know both are right. Both are right. Would somebody please read 44:18?
Then Judah went up to him and said, "Please, my lord, let your servant appeal to my lord, and do not be impatient with your servant, you who are the equal of Pharaoh." You want me to keep going?
Please, you're reading beautifully.
My lord asked his servants, "Have you a father or another brother?" We told my lord, "We have an old father, and there is a child of his old age, the youngest. His full brother is dead, so that he alone is left of his mother, and his father dotes on him." Then you said to your servants, "Bring him down to me, that I may set eyes on him." We said to my lord, "The boy cannot leave his father. If he were to leave him, his father would die." But you said to your servants, "Unless your youngest brother comes down with you, do not let me see your face." When we came back to your servant, my father, we reported my lord's words to him.
I believe that's all I prepared on the slide this morning for those of you at home. Although if you have the, whatever chumash you're looking at, you'll notice that Judah's deeply moving speech continues. He uses the word father 14 times in 17 verses. Talking about who's their father? Who is Joseph and his brother's father?
Jacob.
Very good, Jacob. I'm sorry, we didn't talk about what happened right before. Do you remember what happened with Benjamin? The brother Joseph is playing games with him and he hides the goblet in Benjamin's sack. And so Benjamin's in prison. That's the backdrop to this. And Judah goes up to Joseph because he's trying to get his brother released from prison.
So he's lying?
Joseph ordered his guards to arrest Benjamin and place him under house custody as collateral for his brother's pledge to return with their father. Okay? When the hidden cup was found in Benjamin's sack, this is when Judah says, when it appears that Benjamin would not be permitted to return to his dad, Judah says, "V'haya kiroto ki ein hana'ar vamet," as Barbara just read, when the father, Jacob, sees that this lad is not with us, he will die. The father will die. Now, here's my first question for us this morning. Benjamin was no small child. He was already a grown man. In fact, he had 10 children. Yeah. So why, Rashi asks, did Judah say their father would die and not Benjamin's own kids?
Because your father already lost one son, and if he lost Benjamin, that might be more, that would be more than he could take. I think they were saying he would die. Because he already thought that Joseph was doing.
And Rachel is gone. Joseph is gone.
So why didn't he say, look, Benjamin's kids will die
Judah is kind of.
if they lose
Their dad.
their dad? Why wasn't that his impassioned plea instead of, as you said beautifully, that's another way to look at it. I'm asking, just gonna close the store. Why not say, hey, the kids will die if they lose their parent,
You think Judah knew?
not the father will die if he loses his kid.
Is it possible that Judah knew that Joseph was his brother?
Unlikely, only because of the reaction later. They are overwhelmed. They didn't realize it was him. But thank you for that possibility. Yeah.
Children don't, they grow up in the knowledge or assumption that their parents will die. So they're not gonna die first. They don't, that does not really percolate.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fair. It's more natural to lose a parent. It's it's been said, if you lose your parent, you lose your past. If you lose a spouse or sibling, you lose your present. If you lose your child, you lose your future. It's the most unnatural loss. That is a wonderful point.
In a patriarchal society like that, the patriarch would be more important than just about anybody.
Okay, that's also, let me tell you what Rashi observes, okay? I
Yeah.
think this is. Oh, anyone online want to offer? Go ahead.
Yeah. I think that Judah is revealing what he thinks is most important. His father is very important to him. His brother's children, whereas they may be important, are not as important to him.
Thank you for that, Russell.
Can I possibly give another interpretation?
Yes.
I noticed that it was Joseph who brought up the father or brother first. I think Joseph asked a leading question, and I'm imagining this is almost like a courtroom, where he can only really respond with regards to the information that's being led to. I don't know.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, Rashi didn't see that. Thank you, Rabbi. Let me-
ca-
Yeah,
Can I
Go
say
ahead.
something?
go ahead.
Maybe Judah's, well, possibly losing Benjamin kind of threw Judah back into the, when he's not looking at things as an uncle because when Benjamin is taken, he's thrown back to when they sold Joseph into slavery, and he's like, oh crap, what are we gonna tell dad? So he's not thinking like his brother is a grown man with children. He's back to that moment, oh crap, what are we gonna What are we gonna say? This is the second time. This can't happen again. What? No. What?
Excellent.
Mhm.
Right, spot on. Yes. Lynn.
Judah at this point has lost two sons, Er and Onan, and he knows the pain of losing a child.
Ah.
He witnessed it once with his father and
Ah.
doesn't want to see that again.
All right, so Lynn's taking us back, so I'm gonna cut it out because we have a lot to do today.
Say so.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we're gonna move forward with that beautiful point. Cause it relates to Rashi. Rashi observes that a parent's love for children is invariably stronger than a children's love for their parents. Strange to say, you know, in years gone by, parents were able to provide more for their children in poverty than children can now for parents with all our affluence. If you look at it, providing for aging parents. Historically, back then, parents, children provided more, but according to Jewish mysticism, it may be explained that all human emotions may be traced to the first person. Who was it? Adam, the father of all humankind. Adam had no father. He only had children. So he could only transmit to future generations his love as a parent for a child. He could obviously not transmit the love of a child for a parent. The mystics remind us that there is no commandment that parents should love their children. You ever think about that? There's no commandment that parents should love their children because they say, again, it's the mystics, that a parent's love for a child is a matter of instinct, not instruction.
Right.
Except in very sad cases, no parent needs to be taught to love his or her child. It's an interesting take by Rashi.
Well, it's a different relationship.
Absolutely.
It's a better relationship than loving, but from my point of view, to honor.
Please speak up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, you can't really love your children. It's a much higher empathy or whatever you want to call it. It's a very special bond. And I believe it's greater than friendship or love. Ricky Greenberg talking.
Okay. We're gonna move now to chapter 45. Our Parsha covers, I did read on the plane all 4 chapters, 44 to 47. You can read it home.
It must be.
I wanted to share with you before we read this scene that all of you know, because I want us to, whenever we read Torah, we're supposed to see it differently each time we read.
Get it right.
I want to share with you this insight in the Jewish Publication Society's Torah commentary by Rabbi Salkin. He says sometimes things just happen and we're not sure why they happen, but they do. And only much later, we realize that it was all part of a larger plan.
Right.
So like around this table last week, I told my high school students that I was rejected at my first college choice. Because they're all stressed about getting into their college of choice. I said I was rejected at my first college choice, and it ended up being a blessing. I mean, I know you get it. Some of our temple students after bar and bat mitzvah switch schools, and they end up meeting someone who becomes their best friend, possibly for life. You know, I think we can all relate to this idea. You try out for a team and you don't make it, but you wind up doing something else that you really love. So Rabbi Salkin on Insight in the JPS commentary I just read says, we know we have free will. We're not God's puppets, but there is a script to this great theatrical production we call life. We didn't entirely write it on our own. There is a producer who's off camera. And in the theater of life, we must sometimes simply show up, do our best, hope for the best. And That's what Joseph arrives at in this. He's really saying to his frightened brothers who don't know who he is yet, though I love that you suggested that. He's really saying to his frightened brothers decades later, relax, I forgive you. This all happened because there's a bigger picture. Or to put it a different way, we get the jigsaw puzzle pieces, but only God gets the picture on the cover of the box. All right? So I want us to think of it that way as we read chapter 45. If someone online wants to read, that's fine. Someone would like to read, let's go. Chapter
Joseph
45.
could no longer control himself before all his attendants, and he cried out, "Have everyone withdraw from me." So there was no one else about when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. His sobs were so loud that the Egyptians could hear, and so the news reached Pharaoh's palace. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still well?" But his brothers could not answer him, so dumbfounded were they on account of him. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "Come forward to me." And when they came forward, he said, "I am your brother Joseph, he whom you sold into Egypt. Now do not be distressed or reproach yourself because you sold me hither. It was to save life that God sent me ahead of you. It is now 2 years that there has been famine in the land, and there are still 5 years to come in which there shall be no yield from tilling. God has sent me ahead of you to ensure your survival on earth and to save your lives in and that's where it ends. Okay, there we go. In an extraordinary deliverance. So it was not you who sent me here, but God, who has made me a father to Pharaoh, Lord of all his household, and ruler over the whole land of Egypt. Now hurry back to my father and say to him, thus says your son Joseph, God has made me Lord of all Egypt. Come down to me without delay, you who dwell in the region of Goshen, where you will be near me, you and your children, and your grandchildren, your flocks and herds, and all that is yours. There I will provide for you, for there are yet 5 years of famine to come, that you and your household and all that is yours will not suffer want. You can see for yourselves, and my brother Benjamin for himself, that it is indeed I who am speaking to you. And you must tell my father everything about my high station in Egypt and all that you have seen, and bring my father here with all speed. With that he embraced his brothers, brother Benjamin, around the neck and wept. And Benjamin wept on his neck. He kissed all his brothers and wept upon them. Only then were his brothers able to talk to him. The news reached Pharaoh's palace. Joseph's brothers have come. Pharaoh and his courtiers were pleased. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, say to your brothers, do as follows. Load up your beasts and go at once to the land of Canaan. Take your father and your households and come to me. I will give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you shall live off the fat of the land. And you are bidden to do as follows. Take from the land of Egypt wagons for your children and your wives, and bring your father here. And never mind your belongings, for the best of all the land of Egypt shall be yours. The sons of Israel did so. Joseph gave them wagons as Pharaoh had commanded, and he supplied them with provisions for the journey. To each of them, moreover, he gave a change of clothing. But to Benjamin he gave 300 pieces of silver and several changes of clothing. And to his father he sent the following: 10 he-asses laden with the best things of Egypt, and 10 she-asses laden with grain, bread, and provisions for his father on the journey. As he sent his brothers off on their way, he told them, "Do not be quarrelsome on the way." They went up from Egypt and came to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan, and they told him, "Joseph is still alive. Yes, he is ruler over the whole land of Egypt." His heart went numb, for he did not believe them. But when they recounted all that Joseph had said to them, and when he saw the wagons that Joseph had sent to transport him, the spirit of their father Jacob revived. "Enough," said Israel. "My son Joseph is still alive. I must go and see him before I die."
Beautifully read. Thank you for that. The whole of 45. You could come back. We could move the text. We could remove that. Thank you. And by the way, Jay Cohn, thank you so much for all you're doing to make this hybrid work.
Beautiful.
Really well done. So the most emotional scene I know in the Torah. They can't even talk. They're speechless. There's a lot of crying going on. And it's only after they hug each other around the neck that they're able to speak. I imagine that's what the hostages who've been released, their family members. We'll talk more about that. I'll share with you before closing where I was the day before yesterday with hostage families. It's gut-wrenching.
Rabbi, I just have to share real quick that this is absolutely my favorite parsha in the whole Bible.
Please share with everyone why.
And it is because of its poignancy. It's the most poignant point for me. And literally, when I not even read, but even think about this story, about this moment, when he reveals himself and cries, it literally makes me cry every single time. It touches my heart like a knife. And it's so human. It's just so freaking human. I guess that's what makes it so special.
The reconciliation, I agree.
Oh, and one more thing. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
please, no, you're not interrupting.
The one more thing is that he himself says to them, you know what, it was pretty bad, but God planned it all. It was God's plan. So what can we do about it? We were pawns in the story compared to how God had put it together for us, that I wound up saving the family.
What's the first question he asks when Joseph says to his brothers, "I am Joseph"? He asks, "Ha'od avichai," is our father still alive?
The first thing.
First thing. Is our dad still alive? The brothers couldn't answer him because they were so dumbfounded, right? That
Can I ask a question?
yeah.
It's not touching to this. It's about the 2 years of famine, remaining 5 more years. They're in Egypt. So are they sticking to the Hebrew customs and, you know, the 7 and 7 and 7? Or what is it? I mean, they're not in Judea. They're not in, they're in Egypt.
That's a great question. First of all, as we know, Joseph becomes, yeah, please, Dr. Levy.
I think this relates to Rabbi Greenstein's question about father, son, son, father. He knows his father. Last week he was told father's alive. He knows it. But what I read was he wants to know, is my father's love alive for me? Sends him to his brother. Hadn't heard from him in 22 years. Does my father still love me? Which is probably the great question we always ask, do my parents really love me? Because he knows his father's alive, but is my father's love alive? It implies, this is what I read about it. So what you think about it?
Beautiful, thank you for sharing that. As far as the sabbatical years and adhering to that, first of all, there was a famine in the land. So whether or not we adhere to it, there was a crisis going on. And Joseph solves, he becomes like the economic minister of the
But
country.
1 years.
Yeah,
Does he know? I mean, is that one of his dreams then maybe again, or what?
well, it says when it says for there are 5 year yet of famine, it's a parenthetical note to overcome Jacob's anticipated resistance to a massive migration from Canaan. It's more, it's not treated as like a prophecy as a parenthetical note, like giving you the background of what was going on. Yeah, please.
Quickly, Rabbi, obviously I'm not in your shoes. I'm sure when you give pastoral care, you run into this situation that relatives say, I
Raise
wish.
your other hand.
Sorry. Yes, real quickly.
Show
I'm
it.
asking, pastoral care that you provide, are there any families you run into, I'm sure there are, that say, we wish we had reconciled with aunt, whoever it is, and they really deeply regret not having made up, not having reconciled before someone dies, and I'm sure you must see this.
I would say among the most beautiful moments of my rabbinate have been when families reconcile, and among the most heartbreaking or when I do funerals where family members don't talk to each other and never got to reconcile. So it's nothing you don't know.
Yeah.
Or haven't heard about.
Right.
I do wanna ask you though, the question, why when Joseph, after he reveals his true identity, loads them, I know we got the she-asses are just the FedEx carriers, that's all they are, right? But basically, he loads the brothers up with all sorts of riches, tells them to return with their families to settle in Egypt and survive the famine under Joseph's supervision. And in the midst of their newfound security and wealth, he gives them a strange piece of instruction that Russell read. And that was in verse 24. Al tirgezu badarech. Don't be quarrelsome along the way.
Yeah.
Why would he say that?
Yeah, why would he
Like,
say that?
why in the midst of a joyous reunion, amidst unexpected wealth and success?
Because it's them.
Cause he remembers.
He knows how they are.
But somebody, what do you say? Anybody online? Yeah, please, Judy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Wendy said he knows his brothers.
He knows how they
And
are.
what do you mean?
But-
They are how they are.
And therefore what?
They're gonna start something. They're always starting something.
In the plow, there's a footnote, I haven't read it yet.
What does it say?
Let's see, not be anxious about what to tell father when you have to admit to him that you have lied about my failure to return home with you. He will be happy to know that I am alive. Others translate, do not quarrel, meaning do not blame one another for what happened.
Well.
Another interpretation, do not be afraid of robbers.
Yeah.
That's it.
I wanna move to the Haftarah Ezekiel because it relates to Israel actually. But I wanna add to what Ricky just shared from the comment. And you all nailed it. He knows his brothers.
Correct.
Rashi suggests that each brother would blame the others for what? For having sold Joseph into slavery. Joseph understands how guilt and denial operate. And he anticipates his brothers' needs to blame each other. And he is instructing them not to engage in recriminations about the past. In other words.
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, actually, I'm in England right now. And I'm reuniting with my birth family. So when you said that about he knows his brothers, I feel like, I'm happy to be with my family, and it was a big moment of like hugging and emotion and stuff. But like I feel like during the highest emotional times, with the greatest joy comes the greatest chaos also. And like navigating new relationships, because for all this time they've been operating without Joseph. just like my family has been operating without me. And so there's new dynamics that you have to navigate. Be like, oh, Joseph's back into the picture. This brings back a lot of yeah, so there's
Yeah.
even though they're happy to see him, there's a new dynamic, and also he knows his brothers, that too, but also, new dynamics.
Yeah, I know what you added is so important.
Yeah.
Joseph tells his brothers in effect that they'll never agree about the past, but they can still live in harmony despite that disagreement. Conflicts within families are often magnified by our propensity to remember the past in a way that makes us look best. And so
Right.
two loving relatives end up not only disagreeing about the meaning of what happened, but even about the facts themselves.
Right.
So by focusing
Yeah.
on the disagreement, we lose sight of a shared desire to be part of each other's lives. I'm
There
glad
is-
you're united. Now,
Yeah,
I won't be with, I'm sorry, did somebody want to say something?
There,
Yeah.
there
Go
is
ahead,
a,
Don.
there is a confusion to me though. With all the resources that Joseph had and all the
Yeah.
love he is supposed to have for his father, why
Yeah.
did he not know how his father was? And why did he not reach out to him over the years? I can understand his brothers, but why not his father?
There's so much on that,
Yeah,
Joe.
really.
Go ahead.
Is, why didn't his father reach out to him?
Yeah,
He's
what-
sitting there 22 years.
They thought he was dead.
His father thought he was dead. He didn't. First of all,
No,
he
his
sends
father,
him-
his father thought he was dead.
Yeah.
His father couldn't reach out to him because he thought he was dead.
But does my father still love me? It's all my, he says, my father, your father. This is extreme.
Joe, they're saying their father thought that he was dead.
I mean, what would you think
On
if
that
your
level.
father hadn't taught?
Well, the answer is we don't know.
We don't know.
Okay, we don't know, but I'm glad you brought that up.
Rabbi?
I do, yeah,
I just want to say one quick thing about when he confronted his brothers, but also was very significant.
yes,
And it doesn't really show when you read it in the Hebrew or in English.
yes.
But he was speaking Egyptian to everybody until he told them to leave the room. And as soon as everybody was gone, bam, he's speaking Hebrew. I mean, that was very, very important right there. Turn around and speak Hebrew. So I just thought I'd mention that.
Thank you, Donald. I think your question points to us wanting to know details of what happened in those intervening years, to not make him reach out to dad. As opposed to what is the Torah trying to teach us? As Wendy was pointing out, that's timeless. About parent-child relationships, about friends and family making amends. What happened once upon a time happens all the time.
All the time.
It's still happening.
Right.
And I do wanna bring that up as we transition. Please, Carol.
He also had a whole life. It says he was a father to Pharaoh.
Uh-huh.
That was fascinating.
Yes,
And he has his own family. He
Right.
could have just brushed off his brothers so easily.
Right.
that's a really important point.
Mm.
He could have. He was living the high life as the vice president, but they were still on his mind. As far as it being part of a larger plan that we can't always see, your point. I won't be with you when 2 weeks from today, we'll be moving into the book of Exodus, right? This all leads to the story of the Jewish people, and you're all invited to Joe Levy's second bar mitzvah on January 12th on Friday night. Did you know about the tradition of second? We talked about that last time I was with you. At age 83.
83.
King David's age, and Dr. Levy is actually gonna be teaching about David, starting 2 weeks from tomorrow on January 7th. But when he dies at age 70, that became known as the venerable age. And then when you add 13, the age of our bat mitzvah, you've earned your second bar and bat mitzvah. So around his birthday, January 12th, that Friday night,
And yours.
we will celebrate Dr. Levy's second bar mitzvah services. You're invited to that. I don't know about the party, I wasn't invited.
Is there gonna be an event?
But there'll be a pre-neg. Listen, I'm only 60, but we want an early bird. We don't wanna have to go to a 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock bar mitzvah party. So it'll be part of the services. But anyway, my friends, as we move into Exodus and we get to Passover stories
Right.
of the plagues, Tom stopped me in the kitchen and he said, I want to hear about Israel, and I want to give you one verse that summarizes the feeling right now in Israel. And do you remember the last of the plagues that finally forced Pharaoh?
The firstborn male.
Firstborn, first child.
Very good, the killing of the firstborn, right? And it says in Exodus 12, when we get to that, Ki ein bayit asher ein sham met. For there was no house where there was not someone dead. And the rabbis asked, wait, is that possible? Like, there wasn't one house in Egypt where there wasn't someone dead? I mean, not everyone had a firstborn.
A firstborn, yeah.
And the idea, ki ein bayit asher ein sham met, for there was no house where there was not someone dead, means there wasn't a house that didn't feel as though someone in their family
Died.
had not just died.
Wow. Yeah.
That, my friends, if you want to understand, I didn't say last night, if you want to understand what it's like in Israel right now,
It's that.
Ki ein bayit asher ein shamet. Everyone is wearing these, they look like dog tags.
Yeah.
It says in Hebrew, I mean, in English, we say bring them home now, right?
Right.
But the Hebrew is more powerful. It says, Halev shalanu shavui ba'aza, which means our hearts are still captive in Gaza. Everyone. And, you know, I was with this hostage's father. You'll see Omri is 46 years old. He is the category that's gonna be hardest to release. Why? After all the women and children, a 46-year-old man,
Male,
male, his wife and two daughters. I won't tell you, each story is just more awful than the next. But I think if you want to know what it's like there, Ki ein bayit asher ein sham met. There isn't a person in Israel who isn't aching. And that is the, unfortunately, that's what Sinwar of Hamas knows. That the value of life among the Israelis, like, you care more about a 65-year-old woman with Crohn's than you do about your own country's war. Like, I mean, Israelis are like obsessed with all 29 going free. The other thing that, you know, you don't see the whole picture, you may not have known that the leader of Hamas, Sinwar, a lot of people don't know this. He was known as the butcher of Khan Yunis, meaning he massacred other Palestinians who were not part of Hamas. Hamas, you may not know, is a Muslim radical religious group who believe that it is the will of God to kill anyone in the land of Israel, to take it. The Palestinian Authority, which is corrupt, is secular. So you know what happened after 2005, Hamas killed their own people to take over. I mean, you can see it on YouTube. They threw their own people off the rooftops. And so Sinwar was put in jail in Israeli prison. And in prison, he even ordered the killing of other Palestinians who were not part of the Hamas approach of terror. He even developed a brain tumor while in prison that the Israelis helped heal.
Of course,
And then
of course they did.
when Gilad Shalit, remember the Israeli soldier who, by the way, wandered into Gaza, he didn't follow orders. But Israel gave up 1,027 prisoners in Israeli jails. Now, who are the prisoners? These were not people who stole gun. These are people who stabbed and killed other people, including Sinwar. He was released. The one who, so the issue in Israel that you can't talk about around families is for every hostage, they want 3 of these killers.
Right.
Killers.
Right.
And it's known that each of those killers will probably kill 20 more Israelis when they get out of prison.
Right.
I mean, one of them did this whole thing. So, is it worth really redeeming? And so that's the issue. My dear friend, I mean, everyone has friends whose daughters and sons are in Gaza right now. The child said to his dad before leaving, if I get kidnapped, I'm coming home, Dad, but if I get kidnapped, please let me go. I don't want hundreds of Israelis to die just to get me back. Would you believe? Now, of course, if God forbid his son is kidnapped, he'll do everything, as any of us would, to get him back. But that's the conundrum of the hostage situation that we don't talk about, that we don't know internally. Yeah.
First of all, I want to tell you, last night's sermon was wonderful, and thanks
Thanks.
so much for
Thank
that.
you. Thank you.
Why would they release the hostages? Once they release the hostages, they have nothing to hold against. Why would they release them, Rabbi?
Well, because it's the only thing they have. They know that the Israelis, what will make Israel stop or what will make Israel negotiate. The only thing would be because you wouldn't believe the whole country is wearing these for 129 people.
Right.
So it's because because they know, look, the only thing the big plan was to take over military installations. They were headed to the Air Force installations, and their assignments were take hostages.
Yeah.
Because the Israelis care about 8-year-old kids with colitis or a 1-year-old child. I mean, that's why, like, you ask yourself, why would they kidnap a 65 and 7-year-old couple, make them drive their car through the fence into Gaza? And the answer,
They don't see them as people, though. They don't see them as hostages. They only see them as bargaining chips.
there you go. That sums it up. Let's go to the Haftarah, but Ricky
Yeah,
first.
real quickly, Ricky likes to look at big pictures. Everything that's happened in Israel is horrible. History tends to repeat itself. Good Lord, look what Ottoman Turks did to Armenians. They slaughtered 1 million people. Look at Japan when they raided China in the 30s, the rape of Nanking. They were raping women. Look at the killing fields in Cambodia, where about 1 million people were killed by Pol Pot. I only bring that up because it's horrible what happened to us. Fortunately, we don't learn from history. That's the problem.
Well, I want to share a positive note. Yeah, please, Joe.
I think you've talked this before, that when one Jew is hurting somewhere, all Jews are hurting everywhere.
Right.
That's so beautifully said. When a Jew in Jerusalem bleeds, the Jew in Memphis feels her pain.
When there's only 16 million of you.
And by the way, that is what Ezekiel would have wanted to happen as we read the Haftarah. Ezekiel, the master of metaphors and mystical visions. Imagine, before we read this, Imagine President Abraham Lincoln, instead of delivering his Gettysburg Address, imagine Lincoln taking a bunch of sticks and writing the names of the states on them, both the Union and Confederate States.
Uh-huh.
And then he holds up the sticks in his hands and he says, our people must be united. That's what we're about to read. The prophet Ezekiel, who lived in the time of the Babylonian exile, he has a revelation from God. He takes a stick with the name Judah on it, and he combines it with a stick with the name Joseph. Why? Because, and by the way, and he brings those sticks together, Judah and Joseph. Why? You'll remember years before this, King Solomon's kingdom split in two, right? There was the southern kingdom of Judah and the northern kingdom of Israel, which was sometimes called Joseph or Ephraim. Ephraim's Joseph's son, right? Because the northern kingdom contained the tribal territory of Joseph's son Ephraim. The Assyrians destroyed the kingdom of Israel, the northern kingdom, right? They exiled the tribes, the 10 lost tribes. And so by combining sticks inscribed with the names of those kingdoms, the prophet Ezekiel was demonstrating that the lost tribes would be found and that the Jewish people would somehow once again become whole. So what's the theme of the Torah portion? The reunion of Joseph with his brothers. That was a family event. Ezekiel, gives me chills, imagines that the entire Jewish people would one day reenact that reunion. And being in Israel with a society where 100,000 people are evacuated, you're homeless, you're in your pajamas, you have to run away because of the bombs, and then an Ethiopian knits you a bowl, and a woman from Argentina gives you her blanket, and a blonde Danish Jew who owns a restaurant is serving food to the 25,000 evacuees in 63 hotels in Jerusalem. Some of you traveled to Israel with me. The hotels we were in, they're now whole kibbutzes inside those hotels that have been dislocated. But to see the way everybody takes care of each other, the different tribes, different colors, different backgrounds, different nationalities, different religions, religious, secular, doesn't matter. And so as you see here, the word of God came to me, and you, O mortal, take a stick and write on it. Would somebody read? There we are, verse 16 of Judah and the Israelites associated with them. Somebody continue, somebody online, take another stick, read please.
Take another stick and write on it, O Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and all the house of Israel associated with him. Bring them close to each other so that they become one stick joined together in your hand. And when any of your people ask you, won't you tell us what these actions of yours mean? Answer them, thus said the sovereign God, I am going to take the stick of Joseph, which is the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel associated with him, and I will place the stick of Judah upon it, and make them into one stick. They shall be joined in my hand. You shall hold up before their eyes the stick that you have inscribed, and you shall declare to them, thus said the sovereign God, I am going to take the Israelite people from among the nations they have gone to, gather them from every quarter, and bring them to their own land. I will make them a single nation in the land on the hills of Israel, and one king shall be king of them all. Never again shall there be two nations, and never again shall they be divided into two kingdoms. Nor shall they ever again defile themselves by their fetishes and their abhorrent things, and by their transgressions. I will save them in all their settlement where they sinned, and I will purify them. Then they shall be my people, and I will be their God. My servant David shall be king over them. There shall be one shepherd for all of them. They shall follow my rules and faithfully obey my laws. Thus they shall remain in the land that I gave to my servant Jacob, and to which your ancestors dwell. They and their children and their children's children shall dwell there forever. My servant David is their prince for all time.
Okay, we're gonna stop there. You'll learn more about David with Joe, but the point is, Israel will once again be one people. And God's presence will dwell among us, but Israel will be one people. If there's one thing that Hamas underestimated, they wanted to break the Jewish people. And they did more to unite Israel. Like, if you think about it, on October 6th, Israel was falling apart. Like, literally on the brink, you had pilots, you had IDF officers who said, I can't serve this government. And yet, 2 days later, they're the pilots who are defending the homeland, and 50 IDF soldiers died on the kibbutz I was at to try to get it back after they killed 68 people and kidnapped 18. That's just on one kibbutz. So, look, there are Jews who don't relate to Judaism. I love everyone in this group, especially because, like me, you love study. You love studying Jewish texts. But let's be honest, there's some Jews who don't relate to Judaism primarily through study. There's some who don't relate to Judaism even religiously. They relate to it as a culture, right? They in Israel, they call them secular Israelis. In the States, I mean, thank God, Memphis has 75% who belong to synagogues. But you know, nationally in America, only like 15% of Jews belong to synagogues. Some Jews think that helping other Jews is their religion. Many Jews are Ashkenazim. Who are Ashkenazim? Where are they descended from?
Eastern Europe.
Right, Central or Eastern Europe, and Sephardim come from.
And the middle, you know.
Yeah, not just Spain, it means Spain, but it could be
Turkey.
Italy.
Turkey.
Right, exactly. You could add to the mix Jews from the Middle Eastern countries like Iraq and Syria. Persian Jews from Iran.
Right.
The reason why I'm a progressive, but the reason why the far left has this all wrong, thinking that this Palestine-Israeli conflict is a racial conflict. There's no issue with race in Israel. They're Black Jews, they're Asian Jews,
Exactly.
they're Latino Jews.
Right.
I mean, this isn't about race. Jews who converted to Judaism, Jews whose ancestors were not Jewish at all. It's very confusing if you're not Jewish, right? Like, how do you explain the Jews? Like, are they a religion? Not really. I mean, yes, but we're divided into so many groups that people believe different things. We focus on different things. Are the Jews in fact one people? Am Yisrael Chai, the people of Israel live. There is a unity within our diversity, right?
Rabbi?
We have a shared history, a shared Torah that's in front of us. And as Joe said, there's a covenant of faith that unites all Jews. When a Jew in Israel bleeds, the Jew in Memphis feels his pain. This is what Ezekiel is hoping would happen. Yeah.
Charlie Ferris of blessed memory.
Oh, thank you for bringing
said to me.
Wow.
And to many people.
Wow.
That the Jews were a people and that Hitler got that. The fact that Hitler got the fact that the Jews are not a religion, not all these things, they're actually a people. That's what got under Hitler's skin.
Yeah.
I think what you said, though, so that's, I don't think we should leave that, the idea. It reminds me of the
Speak up a
moment-
little.
It reminds me of the moment in Torah when it says, arose a new Pharaoh, he didn't know Joseph. These people don't know Joseph. Like you said, they thought, we're just about them up. They don't know us.
Yes. Right. Well, look, a Jew who flees from a hostile country now knows that you can find a secure refuge in the land of our ancestors, Jews who've been uprooted from their homes, can find free lodging
Right.
in the Holy Land. And by the way, just one PS, because I know it's almost 11. This is what has made the Israel-Hamas war an existential crisis. It's not that the land, that Israel is going to be destroyed because of this, but just as bad. Almost just as bad. The psychic security that you are safe. We're not talking about the West Bank.
Right.
We're talking about in your bed inside Israel, deep inside Israel. Where was the safest place to be a Jew before October 7th? Israel. You're not safe in Paris or in Iraq or in parts of United States with all the anti-Semitism. Where's the only place you're safe?
Israel.
In Israel. And then on October 7th, while you're sleeping in bed, thousands of terrorists come into your house, the house of Israel, and skin people alive. And so that is why it's an existential moment for Israel. It's not about the Israel-Hamas war. Oh, and by the way, let's talk about the Palestinians who we ate for. When I was in the hotel with the kibbutz near Oz. And I had a long time, we didn't sleep. I was around a table with these mothers of the kibbutz. All their kids are in the hotel where you stayed. And I said, I feel safe enough now that we're family. A lot of them are Argentinian. This is Latino kibbutz. Yes, there are Latino Jews, not just white Jews, not just Black Jews, but Latino Jews. So I asked them, your moms, what about all those Palestinian children who are dying? She started crying. She says, oh my God, I don't know how any parent could allow their children to suffer like this or could endure this. And she says, that's why I blame the ones who can stop this for all those children, the ones in charge of the country. She said, I know this may sound harsh because one child dead is too many dead, in my opinion, she said. She says, but Rabbi, those Palestinian children are the responsibility of the Palestinian people, of the government, of the Arab world. I'm responsible for my children? And she said, and I know you're crying for all the children around the world. She knew about my interfaith work. She says, but you're responsible for my children too. The Jewish family has got to take care of our children. And may you urge and get the world to get the Arab world and the Palestinian people when you get rid of Hamas. And by the way, they hate Hamas in the Palestinian, in the Arab world. Hamas and Hezbollah, by the way, everyone lumps it like Israel's being attacked. They hate each other. Hamas is Sunni and Hezbollah is Shia. Do you understand?
Yes.
They hate the Jews more.
Separate sects.
Do they hate the Jews more? We're not even part of the inner Islamic conflict.
Right.
The thing that they can unite on is hating the Jews.
Right.
But within their own world of the Muslim world, I mean, ISIS used to be the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. Now it's just the Islamic State. So you have a global, we're talking about the extreme terror sides to this. But the point is, while the existential crisis is ongoing, Israel has this resolve not to occupy Gaza, but to survive. To survive and thrive. Now we can talk about the ramifications and all that, and it's a very personal thing because Ein by Asher, Ein Sham Made. There isn't anyone who doesn't feel as though someone has died. It's not about, oh, I mean, it's like everyone knows someone who knows someone. who
Oh,
never
yeah.
was someone,
Oh, yeah.
Right? So, I know
Didn't
we,
Golda Meir have a saying to an Arab leader?
Yeah.
So we killed you, and she said, I can forgive you for that, but now you made our soldiers kill your children, and I can never forgive you for that.
yeah, and by the way, absolutely.
Mm.
I mean, when this is over,
Mm.
the defense minister, they're all gonna have to resign. Netanyahu's done. When this is over, they're all gonna go. There is rage in Israel. How could this have happened?
That happened.
In 5 minutes, Israel's military, technology, and security were completely, but that's later.
For later, right?
Right now, it's bringing them home.
Right.
It's bringing them home, and, about Kaddish. While there, I mentioned last night, I visited the military base, the rabbinate, the Israeli Defense Forces have a chief rabbi, and where they bring all the bodies.
Right.
I feel sure though, for both sides of the conflict, that God is crying for his children who have been lost.
Thank you, yes, that's beautiful. God doesn't
Right.
cry against us, God weeps with every
Every.
child, but, so imagine, it's about the size of this room
Mm.
that prepares bodies for burial, right? And it's prepared for like up to 15
Mm.
soldiers.
Mm.
On October 7th, you had trucks coming in, chocolate milk trucks.
Mm.
Like, people can't drink chocolate milk over there because they could, all the bodies from the music festival, all the civilian bodies, identifying them, which was hard to do. So Kaddish is said, as we say it for our relatives now, it's being said, Shiva, funerals everywhere in Israel while you're there. Right now, it's ongoing. We don't think about the fact that over 150 soldiers have died in this war since it started. Thousands of wounded. Our security guard who came with us the whole time, because we went into the war zone, I didn't know until halfway in, he had fought in Gaza, was injured, and now was our guard, and wanted to go back, because he has survivor guilt. Some of his guys were killed, and he has to live with that. So, look, we close by remembering Ezekiel's vision has come true, that there is a bigger picture that's hard to see when you're in it. There's nothing good about war. War is hell. As Don said, God cries with the deaths of all, the Palestinians and the Jews. And by the way, it wasn't just Jews who they killed anybody on the Israeli soil, Arab Israelis, Druze, Thai workers, you heard about that, didn't matter. But we cry for all those who've been lost. And does anybody want to mention names of loved ones before we close with Kaddish? And perhaps today we'll also say Kaddish for all the lives lost, for the Israeli lives, the Palestinian lives, for all those.
Are we going to remember, Rabbi Ross's, grandfather?
So, it's Rabbi Jeff Dreyfus's grandfather. No, thank you for remembering him. Yes.
His grandfather.
Yes, we will definitely remember Rabbi Jeff's grandfather.
John Dreyfus, I heard you say.
Yes, that's right.
My grandfather, Max Bedrin.
Max Bedrin, thank you. Who else? I did mention last night, when you drive in Memphis down Parkway, excuse me, down Walnut Grove and Union, and you get to Parkway,
Right.
you know, in the corner there, there's that gorgeous mansion that was the Memphis Theological Seminary.
Yeah.
Do you know what it was before that? It was the home of Joseph Neuberger, who was the president of this temple from 1915 to 1926.
Oh, this is what he said last night, right?
It was when he was president that they built the old temple at Poplar and Montgomery.
Wow.
He was the president for 11 years. And there are so many others, in Shloshim in our congregation and, also in mourning this week, you mentioned Rabbi's grandfather. Also, I want to mention, Warren Canale.
Oh,
Warren Canale, whose funeral I participated in right before I got on the plane. Warren Senior of Canale Funeral Directors. He died somewhat suddenly, and I mentioned his name because it was last week. I've been here a week. I buried him last weekend. So,
such a fine family. They bury all of us.
thank you, Wendy. You said it. I'm glad a rabbi didn't say it.
I signed the contract with them.
He has taken care of more of our people than any of us, including rabbis, in taking care, so, yes.
You know what happened?
Yeah, his heart gave out suddenly. They were celebrating his son's 40th birthday on Friday night. They went out Saturday, and Archbishop Sarton actually came in to officiate, and then I did a graveside by their family request because Temple and the Jewish community means so much to their family. So I'm sorry I was the bearer of that news. We remember from our rabbi's grandfather to Neuberger to all those. Together we say Yid Gadal, Yid Kadash, Shemei Rabbi. Alma Dibra, Yurtei, Ayekon, Nome, Yukaye, Toko Beit Israel, Agala, Visman, Kari, Amen. Yehi, Shmei, Rabba, Barak, Le'alam, Umome, Hamayim. Vish Taba, Vish Tabar,
Say shalom, Nimrama. Booyah, say shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everyone. Thank you for joining us online. Sorry, we went a little over.
Oh,
No, you all.
thank you so much.
Yasha Koach, wonderful job.
Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
Great class.
Shabbat shalom. You guys make it a great class.
Hey, good job.
Good Shabbos to you. Yes. So, yes.
You ready to leave?
You are part of the furniture. Some of this left.